My name is Rachel Gill, also known as Pinky Tuscadero. I'm a dialectical behavior therapy peer support coach, meaning I help my friends learn skills and in the process I build mastery. I'm also a person living with and advocating for people with borderline personality disorder. This is the first in a series of videos that I created for all my friends out there who want to learn DBT skills and don't have access to a program. So I hope that you'll find the videos useful, and let's get to building mastery. Today we're going to start with core mindfulness skills. So in dialectical behavior therapy skills training, there are 4 skills training modules. You start with core mindfulness, interpersonal effectiveness, then emotion regulation, and distress tolerance skills. Now, this is the traditional order that they're taught according to Marsha Linehan's manual, the founder of DBT. But for this particular series, we're going to be going in order of core mindfulness, then distress tolerance, then emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. The main reason that I'm going to be doing this is that just working with my peers, it seems like the people that I'm mostly aiming these videos at would probably do better with learning the distress tolerance skills first. So it's all an experiment. But yeah, if any of you have any comments or any recommendations for improving on the videos, there'll be contact information at the end of the video. And please contact me. I'd love to hear your feedback. So what is mindfulness? Well, mindfulness is a quality of attention, awareness, and presence you bring to everyday life. That means simply mindfulness is being right here in the moment, right now, without judgment and without trying to hold on to or give in or let go of any emotions, thoughts, or feelings. You're just experiencing the moment as it is. So how do we practice mindfulness? Well, we have 2 sets of skills. First, we have the what skills, which relate to what you do to practice mindfulness. And these skills are observe, describe, and participate. And then the second set of skills we have is our how skills. And these relate to how you practice mindfulness. Now, how do we practice mindfulness in DBT? We practice it non-judgmentally. We practice it one mindfully. And we practice it effectively. Now, a lot of this information that we'll be getting from me today comes from a video by Marsha Linehan. It's the 4th video in the series called From Chaos to Freedom. And the one particular that I'm referring to in this video is this 1 moment skills for everyday mindfulness. So if you get a chance, go to Amazon and buy it because it's a great video. It is about $60, but hey, if you can't afford it, well, then that's what this video is for. So I hope you find it useful. So let's get into core mindfulness. So what are the goals of mindfulness? Well, the goals of mindfulness are to reduce suffering and increase joy, experience reality just as it is, activate your wise mind. Now, what is wise mind? Well, if you didn't get a chance to watch my introductory video, and if you'd like to watch it, go to youtube.com and search for DBT Peer Connections, and you'll find my channel. And that is the first video that I created, which is just an introduction, but we covered a little bit of the wise mind. So wise mind starts with logical mind. We have 2 states of mind. We have our logical mind, which is cool, calm, collected, and rational. It's where we make our reasonable decisions. And then the other polarized side to the logic mind is the emotion mind. And the emotion mind, is kind of the opposite, is like it runs hot, fast, and not as easy to steer as your reasonable mind. So when we take both of these sides of the mind and we put them together, what do we get? Wise mind, which is the holy grail for us who have borderline personality disorder, which is essentially a emotion regulation disorder. So mindfulness is key to DBT skills, and if you get into a proper skills group, you'll revisit the skills the mindfulness skills module each time you get new people into the group. So everything kind of comes back to mindfulness. So this is super duper important, and it's super duper helpful if you are willing to work it. Now, before we get into discussing the skills in particular, let's talk about mindful breathing. So focusing on your breath increases awareness to the present moment, which is the goal of mindfulness. And when we deliberately slow the breath, we find that we can calm our nervous system, our mind starts to quiet, our heart rate lowers, and it helps regulate our intense emotions. Now, granted, this isn't going to work the same for everybody, and some of you might not find it useful at all. But I think for the majority of people that I've known to practice, and what the research has shown is that these skills work, but they require a lot of active willingness and motivation and persistence. So if you're someone who just likes to go get a prescription and just take your medication, and that's all you really do right now as far as for your mental health, then you're gonna have to step it up a little bit, because this DBT is more than just like standard talk therapy or psychodynamic therapy that most people think of when they think of therapy, of the Freudian couch and people oh, woe is me. Well, DBT is nothing like that. It's very, very skills based. It's based on behavior technology. So there's everything that you will learn in DBT is very, very specific to particular issues, well, mostly related to people who have BPD and or suicidal behaviors. But these skills are tried and true, and so if you're willing to work and work hard, you will start to see gains. I mean, I went from being homeless on the streets 4 years ago to being a college student with honors now, if that gives you any indication. So this is a very awesome treatment, and I wouldn't be spending all my free time making these videos for you if I didn't think it was worth the effort. So now when we go into mindful breathing, we want to breathe from our belly. Now we have a little clip here that will tell you a little bit more about how the breathing through the diaphragm works.
Your lungs expand to bring in life's essential gas, oxygen, from the air. Expanded lungs naturally contract to expel the body's waste gas, carbon dioxide. Your lungs usually expand and contract in two main ways. One is an unconscious downward and upward movement of a thin muscle called the diaphragm, which separates the chest from the belly. The other way is by raising or lowering the ribs to increase or decrease the volume of the chest cavity. We breathe in or inhale when the diaphragm contracts. This pulls the lower part of the lungs downward. When we breathe out or exhale, the diaphragm and lungs relax and return to their resting positions. Quiet, deep belly breathing is a more consciously controlled breathing that, with practice, can become the standard way you breathe. Deep belly breathing aids the diaphragm muscle movement by expanding and contracting the abdomen, the area below the diaphragm. This allows the belly muscles to push stomach and diaphragm up, which forces out more carbon dioxide waste.
Okay, so now when we're observing the breath mindfully, here's a few tips to keep in mind. You want to come back to your breath over and over again. So if you start breathing and you're paying attention to your breathing in, your breathing out, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I totally got distracted. That's okay. Your mind is going to be distracted. Just bring it back to your breath, as much as you need to. And don't don't try not to judge yourself or compare yourself to others, but just go at the natural pace that you can and just keep practicing it. And as you continue your practice, try to continuously slow your breath and just keep slowing it and slowing it and slowing it as much as you possibly can. So that, by the time you become a DBT master, you will have this state of calmness that you can just call upon just by bringing attention to your breath, which is pretty powerful and something I hope to get to someday, but I'm working on it. So, like I said, also be aware of and refrain from judging, because this can lead to intensifying any unpleasant emotions you may be having while you're practicing. And let observing breath bring you in the present moment, because ultimately that's the goal. That's mindfulness. We don't want to be thinking about the past or the future or, any of that. We want to be thinking about, or not even necessarily thinking, just experiencing now. Living, breathing, this one moment. That's all that matters, because it's all we'll ever have. And it's the only time we can ever affect. So when we practice mindfulness in a skills training group, we usually begin the session by doing a mindfulness practice. And usually we'll start by ringing a bell like 3 times. So at the beginning of the video, you heard the bell. So we would begin mindfulness. So you'd come in for your skills training session, and everybody's there, and then the leader would say, "Oh, okay, let's practice mindfulness." And sometimes it'll be guided, and sometimes it won't. So today we're just going to be practicing just observing the breath. So we would start with ringing the bell 3 times. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of guide you through just so that you can get an idea of how we practice. So you want to start out by sitting comfortably, with your body straight up, and you want your posture to be in a nice open posture so that your chest is open so you can breathe. And some people practice with their eyes closed, but Marcia Linehan says that the idea of mindfulness is living with your eyes wide open. So open your eyes. Usually people will kind of take a soft gaze, maybe kind of looking a little bit downward and focusing on one spot, so you're not like looking all over the place. And you want to remain still as possible, comfortable. I mean, if you have to shift and you get a pain in your leg or something, go ahead and move. But the idea is that you want to create a moment of stillness to where you're just in the moment, not reacting to the moment. So you want to start with your eyes wide open and comfortably seated. And then when you start to breathe, you want to breathe in slowly through the nose. So you begin with, and you want to fill your lungs. And as you fill your lungs, imagine your belly is like a balloon. So a lot of times when people like take a deep breath, they want to like hunch their shoulders, and we're always sucking in our guts because, skinny is beautiful, but, or so, in American culture anyways. But we want to ignore that, and we want to like breathe as if our lungs are in our belly. So when you breathe in through your nose, put your hand on your belly and let your stomach like expand, as with the breath. And when it's full, to full as you can get it, breathe in as deep as you can and as slowly and as controlled as you can. And then when you get to the top, pause naturally. And then breathe out slowly through the nose again and pause naturally. So we'll do it again. We'll just start the whole cycle. Would be like, And you wanna try to keep going, slowed and controlled and deep. That's the theme. And as you're breathing in and breathing out, you can come up with a saying to keep you in the moment, like, breathe in and think wise, breathe out, mind. Breathe in, wise, breathe out, mind. And usually we'll do this for like, a couple minutes or so. And then we'll end the practice by ringing the bell one more time to end the practice. So we'll just do it for the sake of, so there, that would end it. So as when we go into future videos, we'll start with this practice. So when you hear the bells, think, okay, we're going into mindfulness mode. So now that you have an introduction to mindful breathing, this is going to be like your mantra. I won't, practice it every day. Every day. Whenever you have a moment, use it. Use it to breathe and use it to practice your mindfulness. So now that you have your first skill, mindful breathing, let's get into the nitty-gritty of learning the skills. So first we've got the what skills: observe, describe, and participate. So let's start with observing. What is observing as far as mindfulness goes in DBT? Well, observing brings you into the present. When you observe something, you're observing it now. So when you're observing your breath, it's something that's happening now. If I'm observing the wall, looking at the wall, it's something that's happening now. You can't observe something that isn't in your direct field. So you can't observe the past, you can't observe the future, you can only observe this moment. So we use observing to bring us into the present moment. And what are the steps to observing? First, you want to focus on one thing at a time. Like we just said, start with your breath. That's a good place to always start. If you have a therapist or you have something else you want to start with, you can do that. But generally, we start with the breath as the first thing we focus on, one thing at a time. And then after you focus on that one thing, you want to notice your experience without describing it. This is really difficult for you people out there who are like me and have racing thoughts. So if you find yourself like observing and you're like describing, like especially if you're like racing thoughts and you're also a writer like me, then you find it really difficult to observe without describing, and that's okay. The idea is that you want to just notice the experience and then just bring yourself back to just observing it. You can observe things that are inside of yourself, like you can observe. You can observe your thoughts, your feelings, like your physical sensations, your emotions. But you can't observe other people's emotions. We think we can, but when we're looking at other people's emotions, we're actually interpreting their behavior. So the only emotions that we are able to actually observe are the ones that are within ourselves. And you can also observe things outside of yourself, like watching, looking at the wall, looking at the carpet, looking at a sunset, looking at the clouds. Anything outside of yourself, you can observe. Anything, if you're looking at it. And so when you're observing, when you notice that a thought comes along, just notice it. You don't have to do anything else, just notice it. And then you want to return your attention back to observing. So the trick is to notice without going into judging, and this can be really tricky for people who are like me and have borderline personality disorder or BPD. But that's the whole idea. Practice makes mastery, not perfect. In dialectics, we try to avoid the black and white thinking. So build mastery with more practice. So when you observe inside,
you want to step back and watch your mind. So when you're observing inside, the idea is you don't want to go inside of yourself, and get lost in your emotions or lost in your thoughts. The idea is you want to look at your internal experience, your internal thoughts, as if you're somebody looking through a window, at a department store. So you're looking, but you're not actually responding to. You're not going in and trying on the clothes and all that business. You're just looking at it. You're not trying to grab onto the moment. You're not trying to push it away. You're just experiencing as it is. So you want to step back when you watch your mind and you're observing inside. Then see if a thought comes in. And when it does, what do? Notice it. Now, I know this all sounds very simplistic, so don't let that fool you. This is very complex and it's really hard practice, and it works. So next skill is describe. Now, describing is putting words to what you observe. You can describe things that are outside of yourself, and you can describe things that are inside of yourself. So you can describe something outside of yourself would be like, let's see, this table is rough, and it feels kind of bumpy. The surface is kind of bumpy from where the wood hasn't been sanded down all the way. It has a brownish color. That's describing something outside of myself. Describing something inside of yourself can be a little bit more tricky, because it's easy to get lost in your thoughts and interpretations. So when you're describing your thoughts, the best way to go about it is to put your thoughts into categories. So and especially with people who have this conveyor belt of thoughts going 24/7 like me, rather than trying to get all caught up trying to describe all these thoughts, just put them into little buckets, little categories. So you got oh, there's a worry thought, so you want to put that worry thought. There's a worry thought. Then you've got, oh shoot, there's a planning thought, and you put the thought over here. Then you got, oh, there's a critical thought. And that would be a way you describe them. Describe them by a category more than going into really getting caught, because it's easy, especially if you have emotion regulation problems, to get caught up in descriptions, especially if you're trying to describe an emotion that's intense and you're experiencing in the moment. The key is learning the difference between a thought and a fact. Now, this is very, very important for you to understand, is that we want to describe only what we observe. So let's say you're looking at me, and you think here's an example. So my fiance, when he gets really tired, he starts to knit his brows, and it looks like he's frowning, right? And so when he does this, my thinking, coming with the borderline functioning of my brain, is to think, oh my gosh, he's mad at me, right? Well, I could be describing that he looks mad, but since I can't observe his emotions, we can only observe our own emotions. It doesn't apply to describing what I observe. So what I would have to say would be to describe it would be fiance, your eyebrows are kind of knitted down in the center, and it looks as if you're frowning. Are you frowning, or are you tired? So so in that sense, I'm describing what I'm observing and asking, asking about what his emotions are. So you want to describe only what you observe, and you can only observe your own emotions, and you can only observe things that you can see and that are right there, here, now, in the moment. And do not add or subtract from what you see. Like, the example I just gave you, looking and describing the knitted brows, that's a fact. The thought, oh my gosh, he's mad at me, that's a thought. The fact is knitted brows. So there's a difference there, because what I've come to learn after, describing, what I've seen on his facial features and asking him questions is that when he's doing this, it's usually like late at night. It's just it's a natural response he has when he's tired. That's it. So being able to recognize the difference between my thought and what the facts are, were able to help me like figure out what he was really feeling, rather than going into my own world and like making up all of this grandiose, conspiracy theory of like everybody hates me, which is something I'm pretty good at. But so yeah, being able to recognize the difference between a thought and a fact will help you keep from falling into that cycle of problematic thinking interpretations. And yeah, so don't make interpretations. And that's exactly what an interpretation is when you take a fact and you add or subtract something to it, it becomes an interpretation. So like if you're in line at the store and the person's really rude to you at the register, just because they're rude to you doesn't mean that it has anything to do with you. That's our interpretation of it, maybe. But really, if we really want to get down to the real root of our experiences, we have to be able to sort the facts from our thoughts, because they can look like the same thing sometimes, and they're very interchangeable. And mindfulness helps bring our attention to be able to point those things out and sort them out, to prevent us from going into problematic thinking, target behaviors, and all of that, stuff that we're trying to learn how to overcome with our DBT skills training. Now, the next skill that in our what skills is one of my favorites. It's participate. Now, what's participate? Participating is being present fully in whatever activity you are engaging in. So like right now, I am participating. I am not doing anything but recording this audio for this video, and I am fully engaged in it. I have all of my doors are closed, and my little recording room is all, set up to where all of my attention is strictly to what I am doing right here. And I'm participating in it. I'm throwing myself into it. And I'm giving it my all without holding back. So you want to throw yourself into an activity. It could be, a hobby, whether it's dancing, singing, teaching, gardening, anything you might enjoy, or anything that's participating, whether it's going to school, or playing Ring Around the Rosie, whatever. The idea of participating is when you engage in, when you decide to engage in an activity, you give it your fullest. Healthy activities now, mind you. And you want to become one with the activity. Now, one example of me becoming one with the activity is when I'm making music. There's probably no other activity that helps me get to a place where I feel like I'm being one with the activity more than music. And when I'm in a flow, it's like everything else kind of just falls away, and I'm there. I'm in the moment. I'm present, and nothing else matters. And it's a great feeling, because you're giving all of your attention to the activity, so that whatever you're doing comes out to be, you've given it your 100%. And because you're being able to be in the moment, you're not suffering about the past, or suffering about the future, or suffering about this, suffering about that. You're just doing what you're doing. You can participate in so many different ways. There's lots of participation activities that you can do in your mindfulness practices. You can, we'll learn some of those later on, but you want to lose self-consciousness in an activity. So if you're gonna, let's say you're gonna you get up in the morning and you decide to turn on the radio, and the song comes on and you really like the song and you just start to sing along. Well, if you're going to lose self-consciousness, you got to sing it. Don't just la la, this is my favorite song. You got to get into it. Be like, this is my favorite song. Give it your all. Lose self-consciousness and throw yourself into the activity. Fully participate. Now, participating is very rewarding, and it's also really hard, especially if you're someone who has, problems dealing with social situations, or you're shy, or if you have agoraphobia like I do, and you're uncomfortable in big crowds of people or whatnot. It's hard. It's hard to participate because it requires you to bring all of your attention to what you're doing in the moment, and especially in this day and age where it's multitask. I got to be here 10 minutes ago and there 5 days ago. It's our culture is not really set up in a way that is encouraging towards the participation factor. So it takes a lot of diligence and motivation and focus. So it's hard, but it's something that's very rewarding, and it's an essential mindfulness skill. So now that you've got your what skills, let's go to the how skills. So we've got one mindfully, non-judgmentally, and effectively. So let's start out with one mindfully. Now, the skills overview for these skills is, so our how skills refer to how to observe, how to describe, and how to participate. And like we showed you at the last slide, our how skill sets are non-judgmentally, one mindfully, and effectively. So let's start with non-judgmentally. So first, let's talk about what judging is. Judging is observing a fact and then adding an evaluation of good or bad to it. So when we're looking at judgments, the most important thing that we need to keep in mind is knowing the distinction between observing and judging, and observing and describing. There's a big difference here, and depending on which angle you're using, it can cause it can either lead to emotional distress, when you're judging, or it can lead to gathering information and knowledge. When you're able to observe and describe on a fact basis, you get a real more accurate, clear picture of reality than you do if you're looking at judgments. Let's look at an example of judging, and this is taken straight from Marsha's video. The example she uses is she says, so Mary said something not true on purpose, and she is bad for lying. So, Mary said something that wasn't true, and when we're judging, we say she's bad. Now, if we were to describe the same situation without the judging, then we might say Mary said something not true on purpose, and there were consequences for lying. Now, saying somebody is bad is not a fact, but saying that there's consequences for not telling the truth, that is a fact. So you see the difference between the judging and then describing. Now, judging is basically a shorthand way to describe consequences. We look at negative consequences as bad in the shorthand, and we look at positive consequences as good in the shorthand. Now, the problem with judging shorthand is that sometimes it confuses the difference between judging consequences as good or bad and judging persons as good or bad, which are two totally different things. We don't want to judge a person's character. Judging the consequences can provide us useful information, but judging persons generally is not, at least in my opinion, it doesn't tend to be very helpful, unless you are a judge in a courtroom. So, we especially in DBT, we try to move away from polarized or black and white thinking, and we try to take those polar ends and bring them to a center, to a dialectic, which is synthesizing both opposites to bring them to a balance in the center. So I pretty much try to be mindful of using the words good or bad when I'm describing stuff, or especially when it's relating to people, because I'm trying to practice my non-judgmentally skill. The big problem with judgments is that when you're judging, it makes it hard for you to react to the real world. When you're reacting to your judgments and your moral values and those kinds of things, it makes it a lot more difficult for you to interpret the world for what it really is and respond accordingly. It also causes unending problem emotions, and boy, is that like an understatement in my personal experience. Particularly with my own personal journey, I have a lot of problems with judging myself, and so, non-judgmentally is when I really work on a lot, especially with myself, because that's who I tend to want to judge more than anybody else. So now, if you want to, if you are thinking about reducing your judgments, here's some steps to get you on your way. First, you want to ask yourself, is it a priority to reduce judging? Do I or do I not want to reduce judging? So the idea is that if somebody tells you you need to stop judging, using the non-judgmentally skill is your choice. You don't use non-judgmentally because somebody tells you to, because your therapist says you need to be non-judgmental. It's not going to be very effective unless it's something that is important to you, or that you think is useful to you. So, you ask yourself, do I or do I not want to reduce judging? And if you don't, then maybe you don't want to practice your skill. But the main thing is let yourself be your guide. Don't let other people tell you what you need and what you should do. Ultimately, you have your wise mind, and nobody else can access that wise mind. You have all of your knowledge that you need, and DBT skills just helps you tap into that wise mind. A lot of therapies, especially psychodynamic therapies, have this kind of like feeling about, like, when you go into therapy, that like the therapist has some sort of like special knowledge about you, that you don't know about yourself, and so they can tell you what you need to do or tell you what's wrong with you. Well, DBT doesn't look at problem behaviors in that manner. DBT looks at the person as you are your own best source of knowledge, and you have everything you need inside of you. DBT just helps bring that out. The next thing you want to do when you're reducing judgments is you want to notice your judgments, your thoughts, your actions, your tone of voice, body posture. You're bringing awareness to your judgments. A good way to help bring this awareness is to monitor your judgments by counting them. There's all kinds of little counting apps that you can get on your smartphone, where which here's one thing. Get like a counter, a generic counter for your smartphone, and for one day, every time you notice yourself judging, click on that counter, and then at the end of the day, look at your total and see how much you judge. You will be absolutely amazed at how much you judge, because we are judgmental creatures. And as you're monitoring your judgments, remember, do not judge your judging. Now, when you're reducing your judgments, try try after you notice your judgments, try replacing those judgments with consequences. So try to restate, like when you notice a judgment, try restating that judgment in terms of consequences or facts. So like let's say, let me think of an example. So my okay, so this shirt, I try on a shirt and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I look so fat in this shirt. It's so ugly. Okay, well, that's a judgment. So maybe if I wanted to rephrase that into consequences, be like, oh wow, this shirt is way too small for me. It just doesn't fit. So by shifting the way that I'm describing, I'm changing what would be a self deprecating, comment, and turning it into something that's totally different, just like this shirt doesn't fit me. So, you're replacing the judgment with the consequences. And always remember to keep clear about the differences between judgments and facts. Now, the next skill that you want to learn in your house skills is one mindfully. And one mindfully means exactly what it sounds like. It means one mindfully is doing one thing at a time. Now, I'm not being totally one mindfully right now. So while I'm putting most of my attention into this audio recording, I'm also at the same time, flipping through my slides and monitoring the audio levels and whatnot. So, I mean, even though it sounds like I'm really focused, I'm still multitasking. So practicing one mindfully requires us to really take a conscious step to practice one mindfully. You can practice one mindfully while doing the dishes. So when you're doing the dishes, do them slowly. Put all of your attention into just the dishes. Wiping, down the side of the bowl, and then, filling the bowl, filling the sink with water and the suds, and just bringing all of your attention to just what you're doing, and being mindful to intrusion thoughts, and then bringing it back into your focus. You can breathe one mindfully. There's all kinds of, you can do just about anything one mindfully. One thing that I practice a lot is that because I have agoraphobia, whenever I leave the house, which is usually when I'm going to DBT, my DBT individual or group, that's probably right before I leave the house is probably the most intense part for me. I'm panicking. I'm just going, I'm a mess, and so when I get into the shower, that's the time that I usually take to practice my one mindfully. So when I get in the shower, my mind wants to go, oh my gosh, do I have my homework done? Do I have this printed out? Do I, what's the traffic like? Oh my gosh, what am I going to wear? And I'm thinking in all these places. So when I get in the shower, I just tell myself one mindfully, just put the shampoo in my hair. Just lather my hair up with the shampoo. Just rinse my hair out. Just rinse my hair out. Now grab this soap. Grab this soap, put it on my skin, and so, by focusing on just what I'm doing in the moment, I can help alleviate some of that suffering and some of that panic that's really unnecessary, that would come up if, before I was able to practice my one mindfully. So that's, showers before I leave the house is usually the time when I practice my one mindfully the most. And you can observe one mindfully, you can describe one mindfully, and you can participate one mindfully. Now, what interferes with one mindfully? Well, not liking the current moment you are in. When the past and the future get in the way, and they do a lot in my case. And the 3 reasons you want to use one mindfully is that it's more efficient. Regardless of what people tell you about multitasking, the science tells us that it's not more efficient to multitask, and that the quality of, whatever you're doing is going to be a lot better if you're doing one thing at a time. So it's more efficient. It allows you to live life to the fullest because you're fully embracing every activity that you're doing, and you're doing it when mindfully, fully engaged, So like when you're walking down the street, you're just walking, taking each step, noticing each step, and feeling your foot as it touches the ground and as it lifts up, really paying attention to every little nuance as you're just walking. That would be a one mindfully practice. And then the last thing, and then probably one of the most important things, or one of the most convincing arguments for me in practicing one mindfully, is that it reduces suffering. And if there's one thing that people who have borderline personality disorder do, it's they suffer. Emotions are just hell for us. And add that to the stigma and the lack of awareness that comes around borderline personality disorder, and it's a recipe for endless suffering. And that's why, hallelujah, Marsha Linehan brought us this wonderful treatment, and now we have these skills. So we just got to practice them, learn them and practice them. So now that you got your one mindfully down, we go to effectively. Now, what does effectively mean? It means doing what works. Going straight to what works and doing it effectively. So steps to being effective, you want to start out with asking yourself, what are my goals? What am I trying to do here? Then you ask yourself, what do I need to do to reach these goals? And then, you got to find out what you're trying to do before you can figure out how to be effective about it, So like I wanted to create the skills training videos, so that could be, you could go about it a million different ways. Doing it effectively is looking at how can I do this in a way that's cost effective, and how can I do this in a way that I can reach a lot of people, and then I can do it from my house. Oh, okay, I got PowerPoints. I got me some recording devices. This'll do it. This is effectively. Whereas if I would have went, let's see, I wonder if I can come up with some money, and maybe I could get into a studio, and maybe I could find somebody who knows something about directing, or maybe I could call Marsha Linehan and see if, well, these are all like, all kinds of ideas that you might come up with brainstorming. It's not necessarily about going about it effectively. Going about it effectively is looking for the most, the easiest route that is also the most conducive with your goals. So what gets in the way of being effective? Well, wanting to be right. And oh boy, if there's one thing that I am very, very primed to, it's wanting to be right. Another thing that gets in the way of being effective is not wanting to make the effort. Sometimes, and I will admit, I am a DBT diehard. I'm like one of the biggest DBT fans you will find. I practice every single day, but every very, very once in a while, I'll just have a day where I'll just be like, you know what? I just don't want to do skills today. I am so skilled out. I just need a break, So, maybe I don't want to make the effort that day to be effective, and I just want to stay in bed and watch soap operas. So, that'll get in the way of being effective. And then also not focusing on your most important goals. So like for me, I'm in college right now. If, I'm trying to balance my schoolwork with this project I'm doing with creating these videos, and being effective would be, okay, I'm not going to work on my private research stuff here until I work on my homework. That would be being effective. But being ineffective would be like, ooh, I really got a great idea for this video, and I'm going to do that, and then I'll get to my homework later. And then you might turn it in late or not get into it all. So that would be getting in the way of being effective. So that pretty much that's a really kind of a condensed version of your mindfulness skills. Just a quick review: our what skills are observe, describe, participate. Our how skills are one mindfully, non-judgmentally, and effectively. So I hope this gives you a kind of a general overview of the skills and how you might apply them. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. You can find me first you can email me, which is probably the most direct way to contact me. And you can email me at ilovedbt@gmail.com. And just put in your subject, mindfulness video or whatever. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'll answer your questions. You can also read my blog at dbtworks.wordpress.com. I have a blog. It's called DBT Peer Connections. And I write DBT poetry. I write advocacy articles for people with BPD, micro lessons or skills training, neat little blurbs, stuff like that. Anything DBT and positive images of people with BPD. So it's a good place to go and kind of just, if you're feeling invalidated or like the world's being stigmatizing to you, well, come to my blog and feel the love. You can also join, or you can also connect with me on Facebook. I have a DBT Pure Connections Facebook page, where you can find posts that links to my blog and other interesting DBT links and peer support, stuff like that. And then I also have a peer group on Facebook. You have to request to join. So, because it's a private group, so you go to facebook.com/groups/DBT skills, request to join, and then we'll get your invitation. We'll approve you, and then you can come in and start, sharing skills and learning skills and building mastery with me and all your DBT peers. So I hope you find this useful video, and the next video that I'll be working on will be reality acceptance skills, which is also a part of the mindfulness set. And if you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for future videos, please contact me, and I would love to hear what you have to say. Until next time, please stay mindful, and love and kindness always.